Opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Connor Clark is in. Ready to go. Okay, this is Schmidt turning the page to Michigan State. Okay? We are turning the page. It is Big Ten time. Roll your sleeves up and get rolling as it is Nebraska Sparty. I love facing off against Michigan State. And what I love about it is, for some reason, I'm going to blame his mother. We have raised a Michigan State fan in our house. And Junior always gets excited for Michigan State, mainly basketball and Izzo. But when he was a kid, Michigan State under D'Antonio, basketball, sorry. D'Antonio got things rolling with Sparty, so he kind of remembers that 2013 that came in here, 2013 Sparty team with Connor Cook. And they won, kind of a shootout ball game, and I think that was a really veteran, solid Rose Bowl winning, blood, sweat, tears, bare fist fight Rose Bowl win over a good Stanford team. I think that might have been Shaw's first year there after Harbaugh departed. And then you get to 2014, and Nebraska's ranked, but they're kind of getting disrespected in the playoff rankings that came out. Nebraska's getting rolled, even though the defense came out of the gates really well and forced some turnovers. And then all of a sudden, DeMornay Pearsonell goes off. And I think you remember it as a Nebraska fan. Well, he had Zoe in the end zone. The ball just went right through his. It was a contested catch, but it was a sideline route that was beautifully thrown, and then Nebraska could have stole one. And they didn't. But poor Amir had really, he got caged in, so it was more the passing attack. Jordan Westerkamp, DeMornay Pearsonell. Nebraska put up damn near 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter against a really good Michigan State team. And then in 2015, you have probably the last great win for Nebraska football, where you stun a college football playoff team. You outlast them. You get a 2-minute drive by Tommy and company, and it's the Brandon Riley catch that Sparty fans still freaks out about. Going to be a little bit different this Saturday. Mel Tucker, Scott Frost, they have history, at least one game, right, with the game in Boulder that was pretty infamous, with Nebraska having a large lead. But Tucker found a way to get his team going. And what's remarkable about Mel Tucker, they have 20 transfers. He got in really late in the game with the hire, and they're already ranked. And it's not like he inherited a D'Antonio Rose Bowl team. He kind of had a bare cupboard. He's come in, he's flipped it. He's a guy that's been at Bama. He's a Big Ten guy because he played for Barry Alvarez, and he wanted to eventually get back to the Big Ten. So this is a good staff. This is a really talented and bought-in roster, and they're really good. But are they special is the question about Michigan State. Can join us today, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. I don't know that Michigan State's the best team in Michigan because of what I think with what Harbaugh's doing. That'll be a classic in itself. But Sparty's got a chance to move to 2-0 after dismantling Northwestern. You know they're well coached. You know they're pretty well put together on the lines of scrimmage. They've got Kenneth Walker III doing his best Mike Rozier at 8.6 yards per carry. And when it comes to quarterback play, you have Thorne in there that is pretty salty. So Nebraska will have their work cut out for them. We'll hear from Coach Chinander. In about 20 minutes, Mitch Sherman will join us from The Athletic, get his take on Nebraska. Mitch's story on Omar Manning, and he did some background with Omar's high school coach, Really awesome story from Mitch. Jacob Padilla with us, Ducks and football and Husker volleyball at 4:40. Rick Pizzo, Big Ten buffet with us. Get Rick's take on Sparty, on Nebraska. And then Coach Kaczenski, Rick Kaczenski, an extended sit down with him. Okay, Oklahoma's behind us. Michigan State's in front of us. You, the Nebraska fan, has back-to-back night games in front of you, a chance to pace yourself. It's going to be gorgeous weather, so these smokers better be going for the patio parties. Don't forget Real Red Reaction, probably from my patio at about 9:30 or so.
Yeah, let's hope that's a patio party.
Well, I'm thinking about it. I'm actually thinking about it. I'm fearful of inviting. We have a group of friends we invite over. It's just that Schmidt's house always has the two crazy dogs. Just legit. I've got the fat one that loves to give kisses, and I got the German Shepherd that will not leave you alone because she wants you to play ball with her all the time, and it's hard to watch a game if she's taking your beer and will trade that beer for the ball she left you. So I'm interested here. Things that Coach Chinander touched on today that are relevant, specifically Michigan State's running game, quarterback pressure. What'd you think? What'd you think of Nebraska's tackling? Did you think Nebraska tackled well against Oklahoma? And I said yes. I said within the context, yeah. Because of, I didn't really see too many missed tackles or bad tackles against Illinois. Everyone's Division I. They're on scholarship. You got to be good to play ball in the Big Ten or at a Power 5 or at a G5. I get it. But with Oklahoma, their guys are just faster. And I think Oklahoma's line, and I'm not calling OU a warm-up act, but I'm saying the line that Nebraska just faced is really, really good. It's not a Big Ten line, but, man, it's big, fast, and physical. You saw OU getting out and pulling. That's just a giant dose of what you're going to see here in the next 8 ball games, right? So I think Nebraska can use what they faced against Oklahoma, and it will ready them for the maybe not the same caliber of line, probably not the same caliber of O-line recruit until you see Michigan or Ohio State. But Nebraska can get better, and they'll have to. I think Walker will get his 100, but is he going to get 200? Is he going to go Le'Veon for 175? Is it going to be play action with Thorne to Reed and some of the tight ends? Michigan State isn't super goofy with what they want to do on offense or defense. They're going to drop 7 and kick your ass with their front 4 rush. They're going to get after you, and then when they want to toy with you, they'll blitz somebody. Nebraska's had communication issues with just about everybody they faced on an opposing defensive line when it comes to twists. You got a week to clean it up. From a physical standpoint, you can hang. From a preparation standpoint, what the coaches were getting you ready for, you saw against Oklahoma, vastly different from Illinois almost a month ago. So now it's kind of up to you to settle in and not make mistakes, and we're back to like square one here. Nebraska can absolutely win on Saturday night. I think Nebraska needs to win on Saturday night. I'm not going to quite go as far and say season's over if they don't win. There are still opportunities, but I think you waste that feel good, or at least that confidence you've built up from the way you played against Oklahoma, and a chance to finally get a payoff.
Well, you've had people saying today, I've seen yesterday and today, people saying this is the most important game of the Scott Frost tenure. I wouldn't go that far, because once you start overusing that, it becomes worthless. I don't think this is the most important game of the Scott Frost era.
They need to win.
However, I can see how you make that argument, though.
They need to win.
It feels like you have a chance to turn the corner on Saturday. It feels like if you can come out with a win, that maybe that means that Nebraska has turned that corner. Most important game of the Scott Frost era, I don't know. I still think Illinois, when you look at the schema, that was probably more important in terms of the grand scheme of the year, and you can still recover from that, and you can still recover from a Michigan State loss on Saturday. However,
difficult.
This game's a lot more important than Oklahoma was last week. The question is Nebraska going to come out with that same intensity that they had against Oklahoma against Michigan State? Because this game is just as important. I'd argue more important.
I say this too, based on at least reports from yesterday with the players we've talked to. They had a good practice, right? Your first practice back after a loss, after a tough one, and this team's used to tough losses. Can we say that? They don't have to like them, but I don't think they're numb to them either. But they've had a lot of one-score losses. The buildup of "I'm sick of it" it's overflowing. It's Uncle Andy's septic tank in the RV. It's full. It's time to empty it, okay? Let's hear from Coach Chinander here. We'll start off with Coach Chins on the Michigan State running back, and that's Kenneth Walker III. I did say I did not stutter, 8.6 per carry.
Obviously, he's a put together really well, explosive kid. He's going to challenge your leverage, and some of these guys, they want to get to the edge and get the ball at the field. He wants to challenge your leverage and make a cut and really go. Hasn't been a lot of single tackles on this guy, so a lot of hats need to get to the football. But obviously he's leading the NCAA in rushing. I think he's got like 9 yards of carry, so he's a really good football player.
So you get a back like this that is so good. And listen, Michigan State's O-line's pretty talented. They're pretty upperclassmen seasoned. But what Sparty has behind that O-line is a dude that is very decisive, has great vision, and is so good at just making that one cut. Think of that damn Iowa stretch play where they run off the outside shoulder of one of the tight ends or the tackles, and then the defense flows. Then they just cut it back. There's your seam. He gone, right? And that's what Nebraska's trying to flip and find on their own offensive side. We'll get some words from Coach Held here in just a second. But Nebraska's defense, I think, will have gap integrity. It's just a matter to me is the defensive line going to have a better game? And I think Daniels and Ty Robinson are really good players. And I think Stilley's a good ball player too. Do they have a better game than they had? OU's really good on their offensive line too. And they won. I mean, they won some matchups against Nebraska's front three, front four, more so of a front four. Nebraska's going to have a better outcome Saturday.
And one of the things you got to say about a guy who's getting 8+ yards per carry, he's been this season reeling off 40, 50-yard runs. That's how you get that 8.5, 8.7, whatever it is, yards per carry. So I think who's going to really have to have a big game, and he's been playing well all year, is Deontay Williams. How good has he been at coming up and stopping a run at 15 yards as opposed to letting it go for 30, 35, letting go for an end zone?
Back seven's been good.
Yeah, he's going to have to step up, make sure that those runs that are getting past the second level aren't getting into the end zone. I think that's going to be huge. And we also heard Coach Chinander say, well, you don't see a lot of single guys taking down Kenneth Walker. And I think it's the same story that it was against Oklahoma. I think Nebraska had good gang tackling against Oklahoma. You saw some missed first tackles whenever guys were coming in. And Oklahoma was great at making the first man miss. It's a question of, can you force him back into the teeth of the defense, and then can the defense make a gang tackle on this guy and bring him down before it gets out of hand?
That is so key. And the linebackers this is a game that Reimer and Henrich are going to love if they get help up front, or if, God forbid, you win some one-on-one matchups on the defensive line where you can hit him at the line or stop him at 2, right? I thought DeAndre Thomas had some good early moments against Oklahoma with penetration. This is also where you're coming off of Oklahoma, where Nebraska's D-line depth will be big, because you're stacking kind of wow opponents, and it ain't going to get any easier. The wins Sparty has had have been impressive. I mean, I know Northwestern's not great, and I know they're kind of in transition, but they're still a real pain in the backside to beat. And to put up damn near 40 out of the gate, that's big. For them to go down to Miami and then not just capitalize. I know that was a touchdown to a field goal ball game most of the game. Well, what'd Sparty do? Well, they were composed, and then they let Miami unravel, and then they capitalized. And they were always in control. This thing's going to be huge. You got to get the football. I know that's like obvious, but you're going to need to get the football if you're Nebraska, and you're going to need to really get after the quarterback Nebraska had some hurries, had some pressures, but it wasn't enough against Oklahoma. They're going to have to be better in that aspect. We'll get caught up with Mitch Sherman. One more quick thought from Coach Chinander, specifically on tackling. Do we have time? Let's hear his take on the tackling. He is the ultimate teacher here with the red marker to grade it.
The first three, I thought we tackled really well. The last game, a little disappointed in the tackling. I think we need to get that cleaned up. Now, obviously, they got some really good players they had in space, so you're going to have a few extra misses, but a little too many for me. And I think we're a much better tackling team than we showed last week.
Well, they'll have a shot to be better, and I know this is your last live day with contact you're allowed, and then it's all getting things down. I know it's out of safety, but man, if you could go live more, that would help you out against a team like Michigan State coming off an Oklahoma game. Off and running on a Tuesday. Big show for you. Rick Kaczenski, Rick Pizzo, Mitch Sherman. Next from The Athletic, it's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio listen?
On Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
She's proud that I'm just out here, bettering myself and being productive. The football stuff is just a plus. I add on to that. But yeah, she was extremely happy, I can tell.
That's Omar Manning yesterday, his group media session, talking about his mother and how excited and happy she was for him to thrive against OU. Just tremendous story on Omar Manning from Mitch Sherman in The Athletic today. Mitch joins us at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, thanks for a few minutes. We'll get into Oklahoma and Sparty here in just a moment, but really well done, sir, on your Omar story and some of his backstory. Pretty interesting read, and I think folks should check that out. Anything that kind of wowed you as you did some research and put it into the writing?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Well, I knew some of Omar's story and wanted to be able to tell Omar's story, but obviously it had to come from him, and yesterday was the first time since he came to Nebraska where he's stood or sat for an extended interview. We talked briefly after the game on Saturday in Norman, but that wasn't the time to get into a lot of that. So, kudos to Omar for being open and wanting to share what he did, both about his own struggles with depression and anxiety that predate his time at Nebraska, but were only really recognized by him as an issue that he could address since he got to Lincoln, and also for sharing about his mom, who was born deaf and has tragically lost her eyesight in the last few years. She had an injury as a high school athlete and lost sight in one eye, and then in recent years lost the sight in her other eye. In fact, her sister, Omar's aunt, who was the mother of Daniel Manning, who signed with Nebraska back in 2001, ended up at Abilene Christian for 3 years as an All-American and then played 9 years in the NFL. That is Omar's aunt. She brought Tracy, Omar's mom, to the spring game a few months ago, knowing that it would be the last time likely that Tracy would actually be able to see her son play football. So they had that, and she went blind this summer, legally blind. So just an unbelievably difficult story. And I think it lends some perspective when you think about Omar's journey and, some of the questions about him over the past year and why he didn't progress more quickly at Nebraska as a 6'4", 225-pound guy who seemed to have all the potential in the world. It's obviously taken him a long time to get on the field, longer than he would want, longer than Scott Frost would want. look at what's happened in his life, not just in the last couple of years, but in the last 22 years. And I think it's understandable that his progress has been a little bit different than others. And it's impressive that he's even here, that he's here and he's thriving, and he's got a bright future in football.
Mitch Sherman's with us from The Athletic, Hail Varsity Radio, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. It says a lot about Omar's perseverance, Mitch. It also says a lot about the Nebraska staff and support staff, doesn't it?
Right, that they were able to get him the help that he needed. He talked about Brett Haskell, Dr. Brett Haskell. She is Nebraska's director of sports psychology, and this is not the first time we've heard her name. I talked to Dedrick Mills, who had some similar issues about her, and these guys bring her up. It's not a situation where she's brought up by me or others in the media. They point her out as the person who helped them get through these types of situations. Omar has been at TCU. He's been in junior college. He's been at other places where he could have received help. And Nebraska is the first place that found it for him. So absolutely. It's great that Nebraska not only has the resources for student athletes to be able to provide this kind of support, but actually uses it and seeks out these people to match them with the student athletes who need it. So it's not just a thing for Omar Manning or for Dedrick Mills when he got to Nebraska. There are others in sports that we don't cover on a daily basis who are getting the same kind of support that these guys got. So yeah, huge credit to Nebraska for making that happen. Well,
get a hold of Mitch's story on Omar. Mitch, you do awesome work, brother, but really awesome. Again, with your story on Omar. Let's talk Norman for a second before East Lansing. And what do you think Nebraska can take from Norman to East Lansing from a positive standpoint that may get them over the hump once and for all, or at least this week against a ranked team?
Well, they can see that they're able to go toe-to-toe with a good opponent. They can see that not every setback that happens on the field needs to be something that torpedoes a drive or sends a game veering in the wrong direction. There were a lot of things that could have gone against Nebraska, that did go against Nebraska, that could have sunk Nebraska in that game, and yet they were there in the fourth quarter with the chance to send it to overtime or even to win it in regulation. So that's something that hasn't always happened in the past. It didn't happen 3 weeks earlier at Illinois when things went awry. Nebraska folded the tents pretty quickly in the second and third quarters of that game, and there were opportunities for that to happen in Norman, and they fought through it. They either overcame penalties and scored on drives where they could have just been done, or they battled through situations that were inexcusable, I would say, on special teams, or unfortunate on the defensive side and giving up some key third down conversions, and still found a way to get off the field or to answer in a positive way. So all of that bodes well for Nebraska going to Michigan State and in facing what it has to face in the Big Ten over these next 8 games. But obviously there's a dark cloud there too, in that some of these mistakes are going to continue to loom large, and they're going to be even more magnified when you get into games against the kind of teams that Nebraska is going to play over the next 9 weeks.
Mitch, I think the talent you can see is improved. The mental fortitude you can see is improved. However, it's another one-score loss for Nebraska. That's got to be a concern, right? That despite all the progress we're seeing, it's still one-score losses that they're falling in.
Yeah, the record is not good in close games. And I think that can be traced back to a couple of things. Number one is the special teams, because that's how you win close games. That's how you win games against these teams that, one, prioritize special teams. A lot of teams in the Big Ten do that. A lot of teams in the Big Ten have a coordinator for special teams who doesn't do anything else. And in these contests where the margin for error is so thin, and you generally know going into a season that you're going to play 3 or 4 games against teams in your division, teams in your league, that come down to one score or come down to a handful of plays, you better be good on special teams. That's not where Nebraska's at, and it has continued to bite them. It hurt them in both of the losses this season, and hasn't been good even in the games that Nebraska has won for the most part in recent years. And then there's just kind of that whole mental side of it where they haven't gotten over the hump and believing that they're going to win. I believe. I think this team has kind of perfected the art of losing close games, and most people who've watched them consistently would agree with that. It generally seems to always be a new way to invent it, or just a different version of the same way, and that can happen. That can work the opposite way too, where you just, if you get into close games, you have confidence and belief, and you generally win those games. You find a way, whatever it takes, to win those games. Nebraska's doing the opposite. So you put those things together with special teams and the losing or winning mentality, and it's going to lead to a lot of close one-score losses.
Mitch, you just laid out what the difference is accurately on a Big Ten Saturday night. How you escape? And I think back to 14, what got Nebraska back in it was DeMornay Pearson-L, was special teams. If you were to pick a unit, be it kickoff return or offensive line play or against the run, what do you think is most important? All of it is, but what's kind of that linchpin for Nebraska to flip it? Is it going to be run defense? Is it going to be running game or protecting Adrian? I mean, what's the element to you on Saturday night?
Well, if I had to prioritize, and looking at the matchup, it could possibly be the run defense, because Michigan State has been so good at running the ball this year. It's not necessarily the same kind of power that we've seen from Michigan State in the past. I think you look and see, okay, Michigan State's good this year. They're on an upswing. It must be with tough, strong, physical defense, don't allow anything at the line of scrimmage, and then they're just bowling you over offensively and doing it in an ugly way. And that's not really what these Spartans are. This isn't Mark D'Antonio's Michigan State team. Mel Tucker has brought a little bit of a different identity to this group, but they're good running the ball nonetheless, no matter how they're doing it. And Nebraska's going to have to find a way to close those gaps on the defensive line and bottle up the Spartans. I would put the offensive line for Nebraska as a close second. And if you're talking about what it's going to take over the entirety of the rest of the season for Nebraska to break through, then it's probably the offensive line. They have to protect the quarterback. They have to be able to open things up for the running backs to have space to run, and then minimize or entirely cut the penalties that we saw again on Saturday in Norman.
Mitch, real quick here, about 30 seconds or so, but what else is coming up from you in The Athletic?
I'll have some stuff that I'm combining with Colton Pouncey, our Michigan State writer for The Athletic, to break down this matchup here late in the week, and then just looking to get on the road to Michigan and see that game on Saturday night.
Well, it should be a pretty tight ball game. Should be a fun atmosphere. Magic Johnson's calling for a full house, so we'll see if that happens or not. Mitch, appreciate the time. Great stuff today, bud.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Take care.
All right, there he is, Mitch Sherman with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch with The Athletic. Really good feature on Omar Manning. Really cool backstory, and maybe some of you saw the tweet from Omar signing to his mother back from the spring game. It was really touching, and more on Omar Manning. Jacob Padilla going to join us, get his thoughts on some Husker volleyball and more Big Red football. Rick Pizzo next hour. It's Hail Varsity Radio.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and Connor Clark with us. We welcome in Jacob Padilla with us from HailVarsity.com and magazine. Jacob, thanks for jumping in with us. And Norman said what to you? What did you take away from Nebraska OU?
Tough to know what to take away until we see them sustain that kind of effort. But it was definitely a positive sign to see the way they were able to hang in that game. I thought the defense would be able to hold up. I just didn't know that the offensive line in particular would be able to keep the offense on the field long enough to give the defense a break. And I thought that the defense might wear down, but that didn't happen. Even though the offensive line didn't play great, they found ways to be effective on offense. And that's what they're going to have to keep doing until the line, until and if the line makes some progress, starts settling in there a little bit.
You know, it's going to be a situation where you find either the right guys or the guys end up emerging and kind of gelling and eliminate mistakes, because when you give Adrian time, he looked really good, and he's played really good ball. And you've got some skill weapons now. I know you spent time today with your story on Hale Varsity, touching on the competition at running back. Coach held in front of the podium today. And, you know, Irvin was, each game we saw Gabe, he looked more and more comfortable. He'd show some flashes, and you want a recovery for him with that patellar tendon injury. Now, Ramir Johnson, there was a sighting, and he ran really well. What back do you think could work best against this Spartan defense? I mean, what type of ball game and what style of back do you think Nebraska goes with? It all obviously depends on who practices well the next couple of days.
Yeah, I don't know at this point if
ask me Sunday what I thought. Right?
Yeah, just give me a dart and I'll throw it. It seems they like what Ramir Johnson is giving them right now, with this combination of pass protection and ability to catch a ball out of the backfield and just overall experience. And they like the speed factor that he brings. He did some good things. Obviously, they still got to find a way to be more productive than they were with him out there. But that, again, a lot of it comes down to the offensive line. And there's definitely some yards that the running backs, I think, have left on the field so far this year. But overall, I think that the low average for the entire running back room has a lot more to do with the guys blocking for them than to those guys in particular. We don't see a Amir Abdullah level superstar in the backfield that can make 2-3 guys miss it and still get a gain out of it. Right now, I think, especially with kind of the youth and inexperience overall for the group, they've got to get better blocking, and then I think you'll see a better, more production out of whoever it ends up being. It sounds like Marquise Stepp didn't play on Saturday, but I don't know that that's going to be a regular thing, especially now with Irvin out of the mix. Hell just said that's just kind of the way the game played out. He wasn't necessarily going into the game thinking, all right, Marquise is going to sit this one. He just ended up never going back to him, just based on how the game was going, what they were looking for, and the way that Ramir was playing. So I think Stepp will get his opportunities. Ramir will get his opportunities. Sevion Morrison will get some touches here and there, and then they'll see which of those guys can really stack successful practices on top of successful game day performances. And that'll ultimately, I think, decide who emerges as kind of the lead guy in that backfield.
Yeah, Jacob, the most consistent Nebraska running back hasn't even been a running back. It's been Adrian Martinez, the quarterback, and Oklahoma really did a good job limiting his run threat with a quarterback spy for most of the game. Do you think that's something that Nebraska's now got to expect moving forward? I mean, people always call the NFL a copycat league, but college football is too. You got to expect that defenses are going to see how well that worked against the Nebraska offense, what Oklahoma did.
Yeah, and even some of the games previously, we've heard that defenses were focused almost entirely on Adrian Martinez and trying to keep him from beating them. And even with that focus, some of the time Martinez is able to kind of shake loose and make plays at his feet. That is, for whatever reason, that is one part of the game that they are capable of doing pretty well. And Oklahoma did a good job of limiting those opportunities, but that led to some opportunities down the field for Martinez, and he's been passing the ball very well recently. He was a little high on Austin Allen in the end zone. That could have been a big throw, but it was a tough one to make as well. But outside of that, he had a pretty darn good day, hitting his receivers down the field. hit a couple bombs there, just laying over the top with perfect passes. So the way Martinez is playing right now, you can focus one way or the other. And he's, I think, been able to have some success against whatever the defense is showing him. So I think teams will continue to try to prevent him from beating them with their legs, but if they're able to do that successfully, I think that'll create some opportunities elsewhere. And it'll be up for the rest of the offense to kind of take advantage of whatever kind of comes as a part of that too. Like if they're focusing so much attention on Martinez, and somebody has to be able to make a play outside of that and take advantage of a one-on-one matchup or something like that. So it's going to start with Martinez every single week. I think different teams will attack him differently based on their personnel, but that's where it's definitely going to start.
Jacob Padilla is with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine at Jacob Padilla _ on Twitter. Sparty's pass rush fierce, but their coverage, at least statistically, can be had. So if the O-line can give Adrian some time, and he's got the same toys to play with, could work out for Nebraska offensively. Jacob, you're going to go to volleyball here. Got a couple of minutes. So Nebraska is now into Big Ten play. How do you view this last 3-game slide? Kind of a necessary evil, or are you concerned about it with what you've seen from Nebraska volleyball?
Yeah, I'm definitely concerned. It doesn't mean that the season's doomed or anything, but the fact that it was 3 in a row and they haven't been able to really kind of fix what is plaguing them, because you look at it, they've gotten worse the last 3 performances instead of better. So that's kind of the part that's a little concerning. They're just having such a tough time terminating right now. Their hitting percentages are really low no matter who you put out there. They've got 5 different pins. They've tried all 5 of them, and none of them have really had success, consistently anyway. But Cook's kind of settled on his lineup that he's going to roll with, and it's going to be up to them to kind of figure things out to get that chemistry back with Nicklin Hames, who also needs to kind of dial in a little bit better and up her level of play as well. So that's going to be the key here is just getting everybody on the same page and finding a way to be more effective offensively. I think Cook's happy with their defense. They didn't play great. They had just an absolutely incredible defensive game against Creighton, and since then it's been slipping a little bit, but we know they're capable of that, and Cook is happy with where they're at defensively heading into conference play for the most part. It's just the offense they have to fix, and luckily for them, they opened conference play against the 2 bottom defensive teams in the Big Ten right now after non-conference play.
Jacob Padilla with us. Jacob, we'll be following along, getting your updates on volleyball and, of course, hoops always in basketball. Thanks for the time today, bud.
Yep, talk to you guys later.
And now,
back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, reminder to get the podcast, ways to get a hold of us. And we do thank you so much for listening. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Hail Varsity Radio. Good, bad, or ugly, give us a rating. Tell us what you think. And can also find the interviews you want to hear, and do so real easy. ESPN Lincoln On Demand. 2-minute drill, the SoundCloud, some of the best parts of our interviews. We'll have something from Mitch Sherman, something no doubt from Jacob Padilla, Rick Pizzo, and, of course, Rick Kaczenski up on ESPN Lincoln on Twitter, so be sure to follow that. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Got a ton of email to sift through. If I haven't read yours or you haven't heard your name, that's not me being an a-hole, I promise you. We will get to emails shortly. We will talk with Rick Pizzo. Big Ten Buffet is coming up. Excited to get his perspective. He's seen Sparty. He'll have a take or two on Nebraska for sure as we get ready. Can email Chris at HailVarsity.com. Follow us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio. Or be sure to find Elijah on Twitter at Herbal Essence. And then don't forget also it is a Tuesday with Kaz, which means Rick Kaczenski joins us, get his take on Oklahoma. and for sure get his thoughts heading into Michigan State. Old Ross L's part of that Michigan State staff. So Kaz, no doubt, keeps an eye on some of his former buddies that are part of programs still. Reminder about buckling up. There's over 1,500 crashes each year in Nebraska involving an impaired driver, driving drunk, buzzed, or high. Never acceptable. Law enforcement officers working every day to stop it before any more people are killed or injured. If you're going to drive, don't drink. If you do drink, designate a sober driver and get a ride share. Find a ride. A DUI costs more than you think. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So Junior is on the road. Southwest freshmen are up at Norfolk on Thursday, the same time I'm kicking off with Southeast and East. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see Butin back and excited to see Walters and excited to see Coach Gingery and Coach Catula. I mean, I really enjoy covering all the high school teams, but been on the road a lot, so my first time back out for football, and can't wait for it on Thursday night. We'll be at Seacrest doing the show ahead of 7 p.m. kick. You've seen Southeast this year.
Yeah, Southeast, good team. Where they lack a little bit is in their depth.
You can say this because you're a Knight. Coach Catula can tell you to run that damn hill.
No, but Southeast, really, really great starting talent. Could use a little bit more depth. They have a lot of guys going both ways. As for East, I know they got a huge win on Friday night. I was listening to that on my way down to Norman. My brother is a teacher over at Lincoln East, so he made sure to tune in and listen to what some of his students are doing. This is probably the top two teams in the city this year, in Lincoln East and Lincoln Southeast. These two teams are the teams I'm expecting are going to be making a run at state in what? I guess we're probably a month and a half away from state already. So I think this is going to be a great matchup on Thursday. Game of the week here in Lincoln for sure. And Schmidt, you're on the call.
Yep, we'll have it. Jeff Smith is going to trade the basketball for football. I'm excited because Jeff Smith's coached some football before, back in the day.
Yeah.
So Coach Smith going to be doing that. I have corralled him somehow. Rick Pizzo, Big Ten Network on the way at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
To Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Into Hour 2, it's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, Connor Clark running the show today. We say hi to Big Ten Buffet Man. You see him on BTN. Rick Pizzo with us on Hail Varsity. Rick, it is 74. There's a few clouds in the sky. It is just gorgeous. Brother, we should be on the ninth green somewhere.
That is ideal. I do every now and then have to put some hours in the office, and today is one of those days. So we'll have to take a rain check, but you know that I'm up for it every time you can make it happen, dude.
No, exactly. It is fall and it's football, so it's as amazing as the weather is to go swing the clubs. This beats working. I mean, being able to talk some football, and, man, I tell you, see, I accused him of not working, and he just says, I'm going to hang up on your dumb backside. We will reconnect with Rick Pizzo, Big Ten Buffet. I'm sad that the buffet got off. We just broke a plate, which is no good.
Can I just say, no, this is not by any means diminishing the segment, because the Big Ten Buffet is awesome, but just in general, buffets are overrated.
See,
on one hand, I love the aspect of, you can just eat. There's a lot of options.
You've not had the appropriate Sunday brunch buffet, have you?
No, that must be a no then.
No, I mean,
see, my problem with buffets is like you go spend like $14 because there's all the options up there and you can go get as much as you want, and then it's never as good as whenever I go to a restaurant and just get like one dish.
What you got to do is drill down on the buffet and say they offer 14 things with the buffet. Rick, we're getting into if buffets are overrated or not somehow. And it's okay to have 15 items to choose from, but if they do 3 of the items, say the roast beef or the Eggs Benedict, well, it's worth paying the buffet price to keep going back and getting more. Am I wrong here?
Well, it depends on where you are, right? I mean, if you're at one of those swanky New York hotels and they say, oh, everything's included on the buffet, and then you get your room bill a couple of days later and you realize you paid $109 for the buffet, then I'm not so sure it's worth it. But in a lot of other situations, yes. Big buffet guy as long as it's done well.
No, exactly. What did you think of Nebraska, Oklahoma? What were some of your knee jerks and maybe 2 days later, oh, okay, wasn't as good or wasn't as bad? What did you think of the, a game that we've missed for a long time here?
Yeah, I think that's the first comment that you have to make, right, is how good it is to see this rivalry back. Obviously, the players, I know most of them were not exactly of remembering age the last time that this rivalry was really heated, but it seemed like they were there pregame, so there was a little bit of that. I think defensively, obviously, you take a huge plus from this game. To be able to do what no team has done against Oklahoma in years and keep that offense quiet, I think, was huge. I think you come out of it wondering a little bit when you get into the Big Ten, the full meat of the schedule, and you're playing some pretty good defenses, because I think Oklahoma's is okay, but not great. Can you be consistently good enough offensively? And the special teams issues just have to get fixed. I mean, you're going to be in tight ball games where field goals and extra points make all the difference, and I think that's probably as big an issue as any issue that Nebraska has to deal with right now if they expect to win some games in their division and in this conference.
No, the fix has got to happen, and the repeated mistakes can't continue. I think the way Adrian's been playing ball, Rick, he looked way different Saturday and the past 3 Saturdays compared to when we saw him in Champaign. He settled down despite 50% of the time he goes back to throw, there's someone in his face.
Yeah, listen, I also want to say that listening to this young man, and we cover his press conferences usually on Monday. He speaks right before Scott, so a lot of time he gets some airtime when we're doing our press conference shows. I mean, I know that there have been some fans who have wondered if he was worth it or if he was the right recruit or did he do all the things he wanted to do. This young man has handled himself as well as any young man I can remember handling themselves in that position, as much pressure as he's been under. He has had his ups and downs on the field. He'll be the first one to tell you that, but he is the best option they have. He has always been the best option that they have, and I think he continues to handle himself well and plays well enough to get this team where it needs to be. Yeah, there are guys out there, the Tom Brady's of the world and the Peyton Mannings, that can win handfuls of games on the strength of their arm and brain alone. Adrian needs a little bit of help, and that's okay. Most of us do. And on many occasions, he just hasn't gotten enough help. This is not all on this young man. It never should be.
You mentioned help. Did some of Nebraska's skill guys pop for you? And then, of course, they're different with 2 tight ends. Moving forward, if everyone stays healthy, assuming the O-line gets fixed, I mean, could this offense explode? Could it be a problem in this Big Ten race?
Yeah, you can do a lot, I think, with tight ends, too. And I think the tight ends in Nebraska's case, you know, if this Urban injury is significant and if they can't really find a guy to help Adrian running the football out of the backfield, your tight ends can almost provide you what's like a glorified run game through the air. And I think we've seen teams use that with success over the years, especially inside the Big Ten. Listen, a 4-yard gain, whether it's a running back carry or a 4-yard gain to a tight end over the middle, is a 4-yard gain. And if that's what you're getting on first down and you're facing 2nd and 5 and 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 12, it makes Scott Frost's job as a play caller a whole lot easier. So I think it's a great point you bring up, Chris, because I'm just not so sure that I see the run game being able to give this team what it needs consistently on a Saturday-to-Saturday basis. So if you could get that short passing game going and consistently going, then it not only gives you better situational football, but it gives you the opportunity to take the top off when those linebackers and safeties start biting on short passes over the middle.
Rick Pizzo's with us, Big Ten Network, Hail Varsity Radio. Rick, let's look at Saturday night game. Of course, Sparty ranked, big win at the U. They really looked impressive against Northwestern. Walker, the third man, is big time, and Sparty's pretty senior laden, and Mel's flipped this roster, but they've bought in, man. And interested in your thoughts here on this matchup, what it kind of comes down to, and what's the overall big picture look for this Sparty team? Are they a threat in the East?
I'm not so sure I'm ready to see that they're a threat to take down the Penn States and the Ohio States quite yet, but they are so markedly improved over what they were a year ago. And we're going to give Mel Tucker a pass, I think, on year one. When your year one is your COVID year and you have no idea what the roster is that you're inheriting when you get there, I'm not so sure that any expectations were realistic last year. Now they have the nation's leading rusher through a couple of weeks in terms of yardage per game, but they opened it up for Peyton Thorne last week, the quarterback, 4 touchdown passes. I mean, he's a guy who can throw the ball when they need to, but they're going to live and die with Walker. And Nebraska's going to look at this game, and Eric Shenander and that defensive staff are going to know you got to stop them up the middle. You got to stop Walker from turning the corner. I mean, he is right now what is making this offense run, just crush Northwestern. And even though Thorne was the guy that gobbled up some of those touchdowns against Miami, it's because everybody's peeking in that backfield, man, looking to see what Walker's going to do. So Nebraska's got its work cut out because Michigan State offensive line has been better than I've expected, but I still think you have to make Peyton Thorne beat you. If Kenneth Walker beats you and they're able to run for 200 yards, shame on Nebraska. If Peyton Thorne goes out and starts throwing lasers and finds a bunch of wide receivers who guys have never really heard of before, that's a different story, but you can't let a team beat you with its best. What did
Mel Tucker inherit? Where was the Spartan program when he came in late in kind of a spring season, frankly, even before this COVID thing happened? What was the cupboard like, in your opinion?
Well, I don't think the cupboard was completely empty. The trouble was when Mark D'Antonio left, it was kind of strange timing. He was going to stay, and then he decided to leave, and you come in the spring, and it's COVID, and so Mel lost a bunch of guys in the transfer portal. I know everybody did, but he didn't even have an idea what his roster was when he showed up, right? I mean, he could be looking at a sheet of paper the day that he took the job, and the day you land in East Lansing for your first team meeting, 10% of those guys are gone. So he inherited a roster that wasn't bereft of talent, but it was completely void of consistency or guys who you're going to be around or guys who had a lot of game experience. So to be able to do what he's done and pick up some really nice wins, I mean, I know Northwestern is right now showing not to be very good, but to be able to go down to Miami and outscore that team 21-3 in the fourth quarter, it shows me that he's not just made this roster better, but he's changed kind of the belief maybe of what this Michigan State team thinks it can do.
Rick, you mentioned you're not quite sure if Michigan State's ready to challenge the Ohio States and Penn States of the East, but I want to ask you, is Ohio State still the favorite in the East this year after their showing against, let's say, Oregon, after their showing this past weekend? They don't seem to be the Ohio State that we've been used to the past 3 or 4 years. Are they still the favorite in the East?
Yeah, guys, I'm not sure what's going on there, but we definitely lost. We lost whoever's asking that question for sure.
Okay. Is Ohio State the favorite in the East? Is what was Elijah's question. Are they still, based on what you've seen the last 3 weeks, the team to take down?
Yeah, that's funny that you asked that, Elijah, because we asked Dave Wanstead that very same question on the Big Show today, and his answer was no. Last week he said yes, Ohio State was still the favorite. This week he said no, it's Penn State because of what they showed him against Auburn. I'm not so sure that you can definitively say that Ohio State is a favorite until they're able to solve those defensive issues. I mean, even against a team like Tulsa, it is a game into the fourth quarter, right? Now, you won't know much this week. They're 50-point favorites against Akron, but and then they have Rutgers the following week. But Ohio State's got some work to do. I think what was interesting is that Ryan Day made it clear that he needs to be focused on the offense, and C.J. Stroud as the play caller as well, and all this other stuff takes time away. But then he felt inclined to listen to the defensive play calls this week through his headset. So he's not all the way with the offense. He is doing more than he would like to do in the other 2 phases of the game. So until Ohio State gets that figured out, I'm not so sure I'm ready to anoint Penn State as the favorite. But I think it's fair to say that Ohio State is no longer as clear a favorite as they've been the last couple of years at this point in the season.
Rick Pizzo's with us, Big Ten Buffet. Rick, we'll get you out of here on this. Big-time matchup, and Barry's smiling. Wisconsin, Notre Dame. What do you think of this showdown?
Yeah, which Wisconsin team shows up? The team that looked much like Wisconsin in week 2 against overmatched competition in Eastern Michigan, or the team that really struggled offensively in week 1 in that loss to Penn State. Notre Dame escaped a couple of weeks in a row, Florida State and Toledo, but I thought they looked much better in the second half against Purdue. They had the ability to break you open with some big plays. I think Wisconsin needs to try to play this one to the vest. I don't think they want to get this game up in the 30s. And listen, at the end of the day, Graham Mertz has to show us that he can be the guy who he was in his breakout performance against Illinois. Ever since then, he's been a very average quarterback, a guy who's been way too mistake-prone for this offense to be able to take advantage. So it'll be very interesting. Jack Cohn, former Badger quarterback, coming back, plays this defense, knows this defense well, and now plays for Notre Dame. I think this game will be tight. I think Notre Dame's a small favorite for a reason, but it's a game that Wisconsin desperately needs because, remember, I believe the Badgers have Michigan next weekend, so you don't want to get off to that kind of start in the Big Ten after already losing the opener to Penn State.
Where are you at? Are you in studio or are you on the road?
I'm headed to Columbus, my first look in person at Ohio State. That's the good news, the bad news. I'm not so sure this one's going to be much of a game against Akron, a team that lost to Auburn by 50 in week 1.
Just a half 100. Okay.
Just a half 100.
Well, Rick, be good. Safe travels. Thanks for making time today, bud.
Thanks, Schmidt. Always my pleasure, buddy. Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. There he is. Rick Pizzo with us. Big Ten Network, Big Ten Buffet. That sounded like a personal story of, it's included. I've never been to a really cool New York hotel. I've never been to New York. That's Pizzo's stomping grounds. So, yeah, I can imagine Eggs Benedict in New York would run me $125.
See, I've heard good things about the buffets in Vegas. That's something I need to go check out.
I've never been to Vegas either.
Yeah,
I need to get worldly. It's been Norman. It's been Champaign. It'll be Minnesota, which will be awesome. See, that'll be a good time.
I got to decide if I'd rather go hit Vegas during like Super Bowl time or during like March Madness time.
Both. I mean, if you got
just make it a month.
just make it a month. Just stay. Just stay and I don't know. I've had friends stay at the Hard Rock and say it's incredible, and I've had friends go to other places that love it. And no, we get it figured out. I mean, I think, and I'm not a Raider fan, but I'd love to go watch an NFL game in Vegas.
The only thing I don't like about that Vegas stadium is that silly flame. I know it's like I just wish it was a real flame. That's my big problem with it. It's like a fake electronic flame up the eternal flame. It's not even a flame though, is the thing.
It's not like Kennedy's tribute.
Yeah, no, give me something like that.
You know what was cool was that flame, like OU's entrance.
Yeah.
That was, it was like the smoke and then you had the flame above it. I mean, that was a cool entrance that the Sooners had. Their Jumbotron was really well done too.
The Jumbotron was really good, but it still didn't stack up to a Nebraska tunnel walk in my opinion.
Even this year's tunnel walk, where let's go digging for minerals in the cave.
Yeah.
Most tunnel walks are sweet.
See, what I really want to see
is this a symbol of trying to, either we're buried alive or we're trying to escape?
See, nobody listened to me when I was at Husker Vision, but I was trying to sell this idea.
That shocks me. Your mustache screams credibility.
I was trying to sell this idea of going and redoing the old one where it's like the flyover everything in the state. And I said, instead of doing animation, let's go get like actual drone footage flying over the state, like cut an N into a cornfield, go fly underneath the underpass in Kearney. I thought that would have been beautiful, but nobody listened to me.
Let's just go old school with the Kearney arch and then the sower.
Let's have the sower actually do this.
Rick Kaczenski's on the way. It's Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Tuesday with Kaz. Rick Kaczenski with us, Nebraska and Iowa defensive line coach. Kaz, a busy weekend of football.
So you made it back from Norman, all right.
We did. You're going to hang up on me. I did not get to see Coach Switzer, nor did I get to get a bottle of wine from Coach Switzer. He was on the field Saturday. I was not. A lot of Husker fans drinking beer in Norman. It was a good time.
Looked like a good time, it's their blue blood program. The game still means a lot to a lot of people. So it was good that the game came down to one possession. I think folks who grew up watching this game and that rivalry deserved a game like that.
I want to get your thoughts on Nebraska, Oklahoma. What's the message as a coach to the kids moving forward after an opportunity like that?
I hope they went into the game thinking they could win. I still talk to a lot of people back in Lincoln, and a couple of them probably aren't real happy with me from some of my thoughts. I was pleased with the performance. I thought the kids really fought hard. But I don't care whether you're playing Oklahoma or Northwestern or Bethune-Cookman. If you give up 5 sacks and you have every offensive lineman with a penalty, you're not going to win many football games. You like the effort, but what I didn't like is some of the rhetoric, after the game about, hey, we would have beat them 9 out of 10 times, or I think I heard that, or, hey, we're close. And I heard a coach, I think there was a column where it said there was a coach that was upbeat after the game. I mean, there's been several wins where staffs that I've been on weren't upbeat after wins because we left some things out on the table that we knew were going to hurt us down the line. I thought the kids came down, and I think the kids really believed that they could have won the game. But ultimately, what you saw, and I know we're trying to get to the building blocks of this, is it's the same mistake. So you put that film on, and you have an opponent that's won 48 games in the last 4 years. And you beat yourselves, and that should be motivating. That should be disappointing. And you can go on there on both sides of the ball, all 3 segments of the game, and point to particular times in the game. If we would have did this, we would have a much better chance of being successful, walking out of there with a W. Defensively, you got to get the ball back. You got, especially with a hot hand like Adrian, the way he was playing and competing on Saturday. Whatever you got to do, you got to get the ball back. When it's 16 to 7 after that blocked extra point, the 4-point touchdown, I mean, obviously it's demoralizing. I've been there. I've been on the sideline. It takes the wind out of your sails. That's when your veterans, that's when your captains got to say, all right, guys, this is going to be a 3 and out. Nebraska kicks off. Their number 5 guy on the outside of the kickoff kick team, he goes inside shoulder on the returner. Oklahoma has the ball 1st and 10 at the 35. You got to put the fire out. Somebody's got to step up and say, okay, enough's enough. Here's the fire. We're the fire department. We coming to put the fire out. We're coming. So I think the defense, they played good. They did some good things, but also when you start talking about certain segments of a team playing well enough to win, all right, that is divisive. That splits a locker room, and that may not be coming from inside the building, but that's coming from the media, and the media seeps inside the locker room, and that tears a football team apart. So, you're battling a lot right now. So, what you got to build on is, hey, we're fast enough, we're athletic enough, we're physical enough to play with the number 3 team in the country. And I don't want to hear, oh, Oklahoma's down, or they didn't play good, or they're not. You know what they are? They're the number 3 ranked team in the country. You are what your record says you are, and you are what the polls say you are. So, that's everything else is just talk, and that's all Bill Parcells. That's what he used to, you are what you are, and everything else is everything else. It means nothing. So, Nebraska is who they are right now, with an opportunity to improve and do some good things, because they've shown they can hang with the number 3 team in the country. Not only hang, but if you eliminate those dumb mistakes, those unforced errors, you could have came out of that game with a W. So, but it's going to be like that. That's what's great about the Big Ten. That's what's great about college football. I mean, you look at the next, what do we got? 8 weeks left. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be many blowouts in the Big Ten. The way the schedule sits this year, the way the teams are performing, as strong as the defenses are, and as well coached as defenses are in the Big Ten, they're going to come down to 1-possession games. And the team that doesn't turn the ball over, the team that doesn't produce unforced errors, they're going to be the ones coming on top in the 7-point games and the 3-point games. And, and obviously you can't give people especially good teams, you got to make them earn it. 2-point conversion on a field goal, that's not earning it. 8 penalties, 5 sacks, that's not earning it. I mean, that stuff's going to happen. You're playing talented guys. They're on scholarship. You got a first rounder up front for Oklahoma. But, that stuff's going to happen. You're going to have a physical error, but you got to eliminate the things that you can control. And if you do that, Nebraska's got a great opportunity to have a good season.
Rick Kaczenski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, tell me why or how, again, through your coach's eyes, how there keeps being miscues on special teams. Kids aren't wanting to screw up, but they are. And be it the O-line or just there's something that affects the outcome because of a similar mistake, the same mistake twice.
Football it's a difficult game. It seems it's really it's a simple game that's made difficult by somebody repeatedly hitting you in your mouth every single snap, right?
Yep.
You should see me kickbox against a bag. I'm unbelievable. I'm unbelievable. But you can go back to 7th grade and Joe Russo. He got me good. I wasn't quite a good fighter against Joe Russo back in Erie, PA, in the schoolyard as I am against the bag in my garage these days. So, when somebody is coming at you and you have to think, and there's a count and there's crowd noise and all that, that comes with experience, but also, it's contagious, right? And I think what Nebraska's missing up front right now, you got to have that guy. And I think Cam can be that guy that can get there. But when you look at great teams, right, and you take the great Nebraska teams, look at their center, right? Look at a guy like Raiola, right? If you jumped off sides, I got to imagine Raiola, there might have been a fight on the field if you jumped off sides more than once. He might have kicked you out of the game. Right. And I remember being in the huddle at Notre Dame and us going at each other on a missed block or a big play or coming off on the sideline. It's that accountability. It can't just be from the coach. It just can't be from Austin. It just can't be from Frost. There has to be peer pressure to avoid those mistakes, man. And I just don't know if you got that right now. Right. I mean, you need a junkyard dog. You need more than one, man. And I look at some of the guys that I coached, man. They're dudes that I was afraid of. I mean, there were some mean dudes, man. And that's the mentality that you got to get to. I mean, just think about the great offensive linemen, and they were all part of great offensive lines at Nebraska. Right? You had great individual players on the offensive line at Nebraska. You didn't have a great player that played on an average line, Schmidt. You had a great player on great lines, right? And it was because of that accountability. And I think that's what you're lacking right now. So I think that's why you see those repetitive mistakes. Cam has the most experience. Cam's got to start grabbing guys by the face mask. I'm telling you, I've seen it, man. I had guys kick me out of practice. I was fumbling. I fumbled 2 snaps. It wasn't Coach Holtz that kicked me out of practice. You know what? It was Dusty Ziegler, left guard from Effingham, Georgia. Get your ass on out. Get out. I mean, okay, what am I? You want to talk about some peer pressure. You want to talk about being uncomfortable. I'm trying to get in the good graces of Dusty Ziegler, not Coach Holtz or Joe Moore. And I think that's a little bit of what Nebraska's lacking right now. And if you can get that's when you turn the corner. And the special team, I was watching Notre Dame Toledo. It was amazing. Part of special teams, a lot of special teams is want to, but don't let anybody fool you. It's want to with really good athletes and really good players. When I watch Notre Dame special teams, Kyle Hamilton's on 3 of Notre Dame special teams. That kid's a first rounder. I mean, he's a top 5 pick. He is a lottery pick. They're in complete control of the Purdue game and he's down there. He's down to punt inside the one on Saturday. This guy, he's on 3 different special teams. So that has a lot to do with it. The dudes that you got on. I could go back to my Iowa days. Chad Greenway was on kickoff kick. Abdul Hodge. You had our starting backers. Pat Anger, our starting Mike linebacker for 2.5 years. He was our personal protector. Our tight ends, our starting tight ends were on punt, kickoff return, kickoff. Christian Ballard, right? He was on our hands team. We had a defensive lineman on our hands team. You got to have your best players on those units. Absolutely. And I don't know who's on Nebraska's. I don't know who's on Nebraska special teams right now. And it's not disparaging to the kids that are on there, but the best teams have their best players on the special teams, period, end of story. Go look at Alabama's special teams. They got their best players on them, and that's why they're great in special teams. That's why they don't make the repetitive mistakes that other teams do. So that is a big part of it, and that was a cultural thing. I hate using that word. At Iowa and at Notre Dame, the programs that I spent the most time with, Schmidt, if you wanted to get on the field, right, you were playing special teams. That's how a lot of young guys, there wasn't many true freshmen playing. Usually our best players showed something on special teams, and then that's how they earned more reps on the field, right? Before Adrian Claiborne was the starting defensive end, Adrian Claiborne, his sophomore year, got beat out. We had a defensive end hurt. We had a walk-on, Chad Geary. He started 2 games in front of Claiborne until Claiborne showed us some stuff on special teams. He was going to be a dog, and he wasn't going to stand on the sideline. And from then on, he was a man. He made that decision. We saw something against Michigan State. Special teams. Here's a guy that made a play on special teams that wasn't starting the game, that got beat out by a non-scholarship guy that was going 100% and made a play on special teams in an overtime game that counted. I'm like, okay, this is a dude. This is a guy that's earned some things.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Rick Kaczenski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, a thought here on Sparty. They are 3-0. They went down to Miami, got some turnovers, but did the job. What's Nebraska's to-do list here Saturday? I think the opportunity's good. I think you're right on about Nebraska with their confidence going into Norman. I think they can have some confidence heading into East Lansing. I know Magic Johnson's screaming to pack the house. Should be a great environment.
Magic, not a Magic bird. I'm a bird man. I grew up hating Magic, so that was good. I loved to hate Magic growing up. Hated the Lakers, but anyway, yeah. I mean, once again, think of it. Think of the opportunity, right? Think of the opportunity both teams have right now. I mean, you look at Michigan State. You got a home game. You got Nebraska coming in, and the last 2 times that we played there with Bo, we went on a last second play, last second touchdown in 2012, and then 2014 had the ball in our hands to win the football game. We dropped a pass in the end zone, and the great football games. I think that was the coming out of Des Moines Pearson-L, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2014.
Yeah.
Couldn't get a whole lot of juice going, and then he kind of lit it up. The next thing you know, our offense caught fire, and you look up and we got the ball in a chance to win. And I think they ended up being a top 5 football team that year, if I'm not mistaken. But it's always a great environment. It's a really tough place to play. It really is. I think it's still grass. They kind of do what Notre Dame. They probably hadn't cut it since the last week in July. It's probably about 2 feet high right now, and it's really thick. It always seems like there's a dew on it, and the crowd is on top of you, man. I mean, they got a great student section. It's a loud place. There's something about the acoustics in that stadium. It's much louder, and I have no doubt that it'll be packed. I mean, that place will be packed. That place will be jacked, and it'll be a heck of an environment for for Nebraska. And the great thing about Nebraska, they just played in a hostile environment on the road. But I think this environment will be more hostile than down in Norman. But once again, it's really, you got to stop the run. That's obvious, right? I mean, that's obvious. And I think when you look at Sparty's offensive line across the board, they got some fifth-year guys, some sixth-year guys. I mean, they got some big, long dudes. They haven't given up many sacks this year. Not a whole lot of pressures. The quarterback, he's not a superstar. But I don't think he gets the credit that he should for being the passer he is. I think he's a much better passer than people think he is. But also, you become a better passer when you have a back like Walker. I mean, that dude can hit it. He's a one-cut guy, and that's what I love about him. He's really, really easy to block for. He puts his foot in the ground and gets north and south. You're not going to see a whole lot of dancing until he gets to the second and third levels. And, I mean, the guy's got unbelievable peripheral vision. He's a high knee runner. Just look at when people try to tackle this guy, he accelerates on the contact. His knees stay high without slowing down. And that is a mark of a great, great back. I mean, I love watching that kid. Obviously, I'm a Ross Ells fan, so I have some special interest, watching Michigan State. So, guys who I coached with and friends with, I pay a little bit more attention to. So that's why I kind of know a little bit more about them. I've watched several of their games this year. But you watch them against Northwestern, one sack, 326 or 325 yards on the ground. Was it flashy? Was it when it was a 1-2 score game, but you never really felt like Northwestern was in it. Same thing with Miami. It was a 7-point game. It was a 3-point game or 4-point game, but you never really felt like Michigan State didn't have control. And I think you felt that way because of the lines of scrimmage. They are physical on both lines of scrimmage. They are long in the offensive line, and they are stout and athletic on the defensive line. And what I like about Michigan State on the defensive side, they can drop 7 and get pressure with 4. They got guys that can beat you one-on-one. And I think that's although Nebraska has taken steps, you hadn't seen a guy win a one-on-one battle, right? You hadn't seen that yet, in my opinion, consistently. I think they had 3 hurries against Oklahoma, 1 tackle for loss within the defensive line, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to be able to do that, because once you start getting the Big Ten, bar none, is the best coach league, the best coach league in the country. So what now you're going to start getting into, there's a lot of film out there, and Mel Tucker and his staff, they're going to start picking apart things that other people had success, or some things that they may see that other people didn't take advantage of. So that's what makes the Big Ten so intriguing. That's what makes it so tough to win in the Big Ten. But that's why it's also so important now, where you're going to have some dudes win some one-on-one battles, right? And it's going to be a really difficult game if Nebraska doesn't force Michigan State to get pressure, to bring more than 4. If Michigan State, can sit back, drop 7, and rush 4 and get pressure on Adrian, it's going to be a long day. But once again, just like Michigan State, if you can't run the football, it's going to be a field day. It's going to be an absolute field day. But once again, it's the Big Ten. All right, it's a road game. It's going to come down to the trenches. It's going to come down to running the football, and it's going to come down to guys who you can't beat yourself. I mean, you can't beat yourself. You eliminate those penalties. All right. You take care of the special teams, and you don't have to be great on special teams. You just can't put yourself behind the 8 ball. You don't have to be great. just don't kill yourself, and you're going to be in this game. You know, you got to get to the fourth quarter. You know, if you're within one score in the fourth quarter, you got a chance to win with number 2 in the game, right? And I think that kid, I think it just goes to show you what he's been lacking on the perimeter for the last 3 years. He's been the starting quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. That just goes to show you right there how that kid has played the last 3 weeks. Now, granted, Fordham's like a good high school team, but he still played well against them, right? I mean, you see Adrian out there. He's a commander. He's a leader. This is a guy that's sick of losing, man. I mean, and you see that out there. I love him getting after the kicker. I love him getting after the O-line. I mean, to me, you need more of that. That's going to take this team to the next level, in my opinion. You got too many nice guys right now. You know, you can't be a nice guy, especially up front. Be a nice guy off the field. You can't be a nice guy if you play offensive or defensive line. You just can't. You can't. It's just impossible.
More with Kaz. Rick Kaczenski will wrap up a Tuesday at Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at hailvarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Last thought here with Coach Kaz on Hail Varsity.
You don't want to be like, you're ornery, you're mad, you don't like people, and and you know what? You're around a group of guys that they don't like people either, and that's what makes it. That's what's going to make you a great team. And in the trenches, they set the tone. The quarterback just can't always set the tone. All right, and I think Adrian's doing a hell of a job, but I think, man, the way that dude, he's played lights out. You talk about guts. You talk about, you know, that ball he threw down on that 9 route. I mean, that was a great play, great catch by that kid. But, heck, man, I would have caught that 5 out of 10 times if he put it there. I promise you. You know, he did some great things. And it just goes to show you the talent now, you know, getting those tight ends back, getting those receivers back. You know, I just don't want to hear close. I don't think the players want to hear close. You either do or you don't. And that's the great thing about football, right? You are or you aren't. Okay. So let's get to it. Let's get to where we are. Let's do it. You are what you are. All right. So let's go out and let's go get a W and stop talking about being close, talking about being young and all that other rhetoric. Just go win the football game.
Kaz, it'll be a party Saturday night. Can't wait for it. Thanks for your insight, man. This was awesome to chat with you, bud.
You got it, my man.
So Mel Tucker has weighed in on what type of party it'll be. Is it going to look like Christmas? He doesn't want that to be the case. As of a few hours ago, and Dustin Schulte, don't know where the extra L came in, Saturdays Down South. So Mel Tucker does not want more than 2,500 Husker fans in Spartan Stadium. There's a direct flight, I think, either from Lincoln or Omaha, that was added back in August. So if I go hit roulette red number, we'll say 5 for Omar tonight at the casino, maybe we'll hit a road show Friday, Saturday again. Doubtful. Next road show is going to be in Minneapolis, but man, that'd be cool to be in Sparty. And Kaz is right. I mean, we're talking, it is going to be British Open rough to try and run through potentially for Nebraska. Maybe they'll cut it for Walker. I don't know. But it's going to be nice. A high-stakes game, the first of many. This is going to be an exciting stretch for Nebraska if they can kind of play up the capabilities. You know what they got to do against Sparty. Can they go do it? You were worried or concerned as a Nebraska fan coming off the Oklahoma loss if it was going to be a bloodbath, right? Well, Nebraska was right there. Do they kind of pay it forward with a different, finally get over the hump result? And that doesn't, it just means it's okay, a chance to correct and finally get another win. It doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to be great or easier because Northwestern, as bad as they look, are always a pain. Michigan, Minnesota, break, Purdue, Whiskey, after Ohio State, and then Iowa. This is going to be a really crazy stretch, and it'll test the football team. And they have gotten better. Can they keep doing that? Can they get healthy? Can they get consistent on the offensive line? Good stuff. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Mike Babcock on the show, and Dr. Rob Zadiska, part of the pipeline with us.